couldn't sleep. Again. The sound of zippers and rustling fabric from our bedroom had been going on for 3 hours now. Julia was packing for her spiritual journey to Bali. Her words, not mine. At 3 a.m, apparently enlightenment couldn't wait for sunrise. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Carter, honey, have you seen my good sunglasses?" she called out, her voice artificially sweet. The same tone she used when asking me to take out the trash or pretend I didn't notice the credit card bills. "Check the kitchen counter," I replied from the couch, not moving from my spot. I'd been staring at the ceiling, counting the water stains and wondering when my marriage had become a bad sitcom. Julia Callahan, my wife of 12 years, had announced 2 weeks ago that she needed space to find herself. Apparently, our historic Maine house, my auto body shop, and our entire life together weren't providing adequate self-discovery opportunities. She needed Bali, she needed 2 weeks, she needed freedom. What she didn't know was that I'd already found what she was really looking for. The receipts in her purse told a different story. Dinner for 2 at Romano's, the expensive Italian place downtown, couples massage at the seaside spa, a men's cologne purchase at Macy's. Funny thing about that cologne, I'm allergic to most fragrances. Always have been. "Found them." Julia's voice drifted from the kitchen. I heard her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Even at 3 a.m, she was wearing heels. For packing, for Bali, for enlightenment. She appeared in the living room doorway, silhouetted against the kitchen light. At 35, Julia was still striking. Auburn hair, green eyes, the kind of figure that made other men look twice. She knew it too, had always known it. "You know you don't have to sleep on the couch," she said, perching on the arm of my recliner. "I'm not leaving until tomorrow afternoon." "Just thinking," I said, finally looking at her. She was wearing that black silk nightgown I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she'd worn exactly once before tonight. "About the shop. Got 3 cars coming in Monday that need major work." "Always working," she sighed, running her fingers through my hair. "Maybe that's why I need this trip. We both need perspective." "Perspective. Right." "How's the packing going?" I asked, catching her wrist gently. Her phone was in her other hand, screen face down. It had been buzzing intermittently all evening. "Almost done. Just need to grab a few more things." She stood up, smoothing down the silk. "Ethan's picking me up at 2 tomorrow. His flight to Bali leaves an hour after mine." There it was. Ethan Pierce. The name that had been appearing in her text messages for 3 months. The venture capitalist with the luxury condo downtown and the sports car that needed special maintenance at my shop. The man who'd been funding my wife's sudden interest in self-discovery. "Ethan." I kept my voice neutral, mechanic calm. "Your work friend?" "He's going to Bali too. Coincidence, right? He suggested we share an Uber to save money." Julia's laugh was too bright, too rehearsed. Small world. Small world indeed, especially when you're planning it. "That's convenient," I said. "Real convenient." She kissed my forehead, her lips lingering longer than usual. Guilt, probably. Or maybe just making sure I was properly sedated for tomorrow's departure. "Try to get some sleep, honey. And don't work too hard while I'm gone. Maybe call Sean, have some guys' nights. You never do anything fun anymore." Fun. Like discovering your wife's affair through credit card statements and accidentally overheard phone calls. Like finding hotel receipts in her jacket pocket. Like watching the woman you married turn into a stranger who wore expensive perfume to bed and talked about finding herself in another man's arms. After she went back upstairs, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos I'd taken of her laptop screen 3 days ago. The secret folder labeled travel plans that had nothing to do with spiritual journeys and everything to do with romantic getaways. Screenshots of Ethan's messages. "Can't wait to have you all to myself for 2 weeks. Tell Carter it's a meditation retreat. He'll buy it." The meditation retreat part was almost funny. Julia's idea of meditation was deciding between mimosas and Bloody Marys at Sunday brunch. I heard her moving around upstairs, probably checking her appearance in the full-length mirror one more time, making sure she looked perfect for her big escape, her grand adventure, her betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from Sean Martinez, my best friend and shop foreman. "You still awake? Saw your light on driving by." I typed back, "Come over, back door, quiet." 5 minutes later, Sean was sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee and studying my face with the intensity he usually reserved for engine diagnostics. "She's really doing it?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "Leaves tomorrow at 2. I showed him the photos on my phone, with her work friend Ethan. Sean whistled softly. Man, I'm sorry. What are you going to do? I looked toward the stairs where Julia was probably practicing her goodbye speech in the mirror, the loving wife reluctantly leaving her devoted husband for a necessary journey of self-improvement. I'm going to give her exactly what she wants, I said. Freedom. Sean raised an eyebrow. What kind of freedom? The kind where she gets to find out who she really is, and who she isn't. I pulled up my banking app on my phone, starting with finding out what it's like to pay for her own spiritual journey. Carter. She wants independence? She's about to get more independence than she bargained for. I started typing, removing Julia's access to our joint accounts. She wants to explore herself. She can explore what it's like to be a single woman with no safety net. You sure about this? I thought about 12 years of marriage, 12 years of building something together, the house, the business, the life we'd created, 12 years that she was willing to throw away for 2 weeks with a man who drove a car worth more than most people's houses. She made her choice, Sean. Now she gets to live with it. By 4 a.m., Julia's access to our bank accounts was gone. I'd changed the locks on the house. Easy enough when you own an auto body shop and know every locksmith in town. I'd canceled her credit cards, citing suspicious activity. Technically true. When Sean left, he squeezed my shoulder. You need anything at all, you call me. Actually, I said, walking him to the door, there is one thing. You still got that GPS tracker from when your ex-wife was hiding assets? Yeah, why? Julia's car is going to need some routine maintenance before her trip tomorrow. Sean grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. I'll bring my tools. I went back to the couch, but not to sleep. I had planning to do. Julia wanted 2 weeks to find herself. I was going to make sure she found exactly what she was looking for, and maybe a few things she wasn't. The next afternoon, I watched from the garage as Julia dragged her designer luggage to the curb. She'd changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on a white sundress that probably cost more than my monthly insurance payment. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked like a woman going on vacation with her lover, not someone seeking spiritual enlightenment. Ethan's black BMW pulled up exactly at 2 o'clock. I had to admire his punctuality, if nothing else. He stepped out wearing khakis and a polo shirt, looking like he'd stepped off a yacht club brochure. Tall, tan, perfectly groomed. Everything I wasn't. I stayed in the shadows of the garage, watching him load Julia's bags into his trunk with exaggerated chivalry. The kind of performance meant for an audience. Me, specifically. He wanted me to see him taking care of my wife. Wanted me to know he could provide things I couldn't. Julia glanced toward the house one more time before getting in the passenger seat. For a moment, I thought she might come say goodbye properly. Instead, she pulled out her phone and typed something. My phone buzzed. Gone for 2 weeks. Love you. Will call when I land. Jay. Love you. Right. I watched the BMW disappear down Maple Street, then walked to my truck. Sean was waiting at the shop, along with Mrs. Duval from next door. Eleanor Duval was 73, sharp as a tack, and had been watching the neighborhood drama unfold with the interest of someone who'd lived through enough small-town scandals to recognize the signs. She's gone, I announced, climbing out of the truck. Good riddance, Mrs. Duval sniffed. That girl's been trouble since the day you married her. Too pretty for her own good, and twice as entitled. Now, Eleanor, Sean said, grinning, tell us how you really feel. I feel like Carter's about to do something that's either brilliant or stupid, and I want to help. She fixed me with a stare that could strip paint. What do you need? I pulled out my phone and opened the GPS tracking app. The little red dot was moving toward the airport, right on schedule. I need someone to keep an eye on the house while I'm working, and I need someone with connections to every gossip network in this town. Mrs. Duval smiled. It was not a grandmotherly smile. I can do both. What else? Sean's going to help me with some automotive work. Julia's friend Monica drives a white Lexus, license plate. I showed them the photo I'd taken. She's been helping Julia with her travel plans. I think Monica needs to understand the consequences of being an accessory. What kind of consequences? Sean asked. The kind that involve her finding out what it's like when the whole town knows your business. I looked at Mrs. Duval. Think you can arrange that? Honey, I can have Monica's dirty laundry aired from here to Bangor by tomorrow night. What am I working with? I showed them the screenshots from Julia's laptop. Monica's messages were particularly damning. Just tell him it's a girls' trip, and Ethan is so much hotter than Carter. You're trading up, girl. Mrs. Duval's eyes lit up. Oh, this is going to be fun. We spent the next hour planning. By 5 o'clock, the GPS tracker showed Julia and Ethan at the airport. By 6, they were airborne. By 7, I was sitting in Murphy's bar with a beer and a recording device, waiting for Monica to show up for her regular Tuesday night girls' night. Murphy's was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, and nobody pretended otherwise. Dark wood, dim lighting, and the kind of atmosphere where secrets went to die. Perfect for what I had in mind. Monica arrived at 7:30 with 2 other women I recognized from Julia's work. She was already tipsy, probably pre-gaming at home to celebrate her friend's successful escape. She spotted me at the bar and wobbled over on her designer heels. "Carter, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be home missing your wife?" Her laugh was too loud, too sharp, the kind of laugh that said she knew exactly where Julia was and who she was with. "Just grabbing a drink," I said, signaling the bartender. "Buy you ladies around, celebrating something?" "Oh, you could say that." Monica slid onto the bar stool next to me, leaning in conspiratorially. "Julia finally did it. She finally chose happiness." "Happiness? Come on, Carter, you had to know this was coming. A woman like Julia stuck in this town with—" She gestured vaguely at me. "No offense, but she needs more than you can give her." I ordered another round, making sure Monica's drink was strong. More like what? Like Ethan Pierce, like excitement, like a man who can take her places. Monica was warming to her subject now, encouraged by alcohol and what she thought was my ignorance. "She's been miserable for months. You never take her anywhere nice, never buy her anything special. When's the last time you surprised her with jewelry?" "When's the last time she surprised me by not cheating?" I asked quietly. Monica's laugh faltered. "What?" "Nothing. Just wondering how long this has been going on." I kept my voice casual, friendly even. "The thing with Ethan." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You've been covering for her for months. The girls' nights that weren't girls' nights. The work conferences that were actually hotel stays. The shopping trips where she came back with presents from her boyfriend." Monica's face went pale under her makeup. "Carter, It's okay," I said, pulling out my phone and stopping the recording. "I just wanted to hear you admit it." "You recorded me?" Her voice went up an octave. "That's illegal." "Actually, it's not. Maine's a one-party consent state. Look it up." I finished my beer and stood up. "Enjoy your girls' night, Monica. Oh, and you might want to check your social media tomorrow. Small towns love a good story." I left her sitting at the bar, staring at her phone like it might explode, which in a way, it was about to. The next morning, I was at the shop by 6 a.m. when my phone started buzzing. Text after text from Julia, increasingly frantic. "Carter, my credit cards aren't working. The bank says I don't have access to our accounts. This has to be a mistake. Call me back now." I didn't call back. Instead, I checked the GPS tracker. Julia and Ethan were in Bali, probably discovering that spiritual enlightenment was expensive when you had to pay for it yourself. Sean arrived at 7 with coffee and a newspaper. You see the morning gossip column. I hadn't, but Mrs. Duval had been busy. The local paper's Around Town section featured a blind item about a local project manager who'd been exploring more than just architecture with a wealthy out-of-town investor. It didn't name names, but in a town of 8,000 people, it didn't need to. "Phase 1 complete," I said, accepting the coffee. "How's Monica this morning?" "According to my cousin who works at the bank, she called in sick. Apparently she's been getting calls all morning from people wanting to know if the blind item is about her friend." Sean grinned. "Mrs. Duval is an artist." My phone rang. Julia's number. "You going to answer that?" Sean asked. "Not yet. Let her sweat a little longer." I let it go to voicemail, then played the message on speaker. "Carter, I don't know what's happening, but I need you to fix this. I can't access any of our money, and Ethan says his credit cards are maxed out. We're stuck at the hotel until this gets sorted out. Call me back immediately." Ethan's credit cards were maxed out? Interesting. Mr. Venture Capitalist wasn't as liquid as he'd pretended to be. I made a mental note to look into that later. "What's phase 2? Sean asked. I pulled up Ethan's business profile on my laptop. Pierce Capital Ventures. Impressive website, fancy office address, testimonials from satisfied clients. But when you looked deeper, when you checked the business filings and financial records that were public information, a different picture emerged. Phase 2 is letting Mr. Pierce's business associates know exactly what kind of man they're dealing with, I said, scrolling through his client list. Turns out, a lot of his investors are family men, conservative family men who don't appreciate partners who break up marriages. How do you know that? Because 3 of them bring their cars to my shop, and they all love to talk about their wives and kids while they wait. I started composing emails, attaching the screenshots of Ethan's messages to Julia. Amazing how much people value integrity in business partners. By noon, my phone had 15 missed calls from Julia and 3 from Ethan. I was starting to enjoy the silence. Mrs. Duval stopped by the shop around 1 o'clock with a sandwich and an update. Monica's been calling everyone she knows, trying to do damage control. Apparently half the town is asking her about Julia's meditation retreat. The other half is asking why she's been covering for a cheater. Any word from Julia's work? Oh, that's the best part. Turns out Julia's boss is one of Ethan's investors. Was one of his investors. He pulled out this morning after getting some very interesting emails about his business partner's character. Mrs. Duval's smile was positively wicked. Julia might want to polish up her resume when she gets back. If she gets back, I thought. Without access to money and with Ethan's resources drying up, they were going to have to get creative about return flights. My phone buzzed with another text from Julia. Carter, please. Whatever you think is happening, you're wrong. I love you. I need you to trust me. I showed the message to Sean and Mrs. Duval. Trust, Sean snorted. That's rich. She's scared, Mrs. Duval observed. Good. Fear makes people show their true colors. I typed back, enjoy your meditation retreat. Take all the time you need to find yourself. Then I turned off my phone. Julia wanted 2 weeks to explore herself. She was going to get them, whether she could afford them or not. Day 5 of Julia's spiritual journey brought unexpected visitors to my shop. I was under the hood of a '92 Chevy when I heard expensive heels clicking on the concrete floor. I knew that sound. Julia's mother, Patricia Whitmore, had arrived. Patricia was everything Julia aspired to be. Old money, country club membership, and the kind of condescending smile that could freeze hell over. She'd never approved of her daughter marrying a mechanic, and she'd never let me forget it. Carter, she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. We need to talk. I wiped my hands on a rag and straightened up. Mrs. Whitmore, what brings you to my humble shop? Don't be cute. You know why I'm here. She was flanked by Julia's sister Rebecca and her husband David, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Julia called me crying yesterday. She says you've frozen her out of your accounts and abandoned her in Bali. Abandoned her? I leaned against the workbench. I thought she was on a meditation retreat, finding herself, exploring her inner peace. Patricia's eyes narrowed. She's exploring her options for personal growth, yes? That doesn't give you the right to strand her in a foreign country without resources. Resources. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the bank statements I'd screenshot. You mean like the $3,000 she spent on couples massages last month? Or the $1,500 on romantic dinners? Funny thing about those charges. They're all for 2 people, but I was working late every single night they happened. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. Carter, maybe there's an explanation. There is an explanation. Your sister is in Bali with her boyfriend, not on some spiritual quest. She's been lying to all of us for months. I showed them the screenshots from Julia's laptop. Including you, Mrs. Whitmore. Unless you knew about Ethan Pierce and just didn't care. Patricia's face went through several color changes. That's impossible. Julia would never. Julia would and Julia did. I closed the phone. So if you're here to guilt me into funding her adultery vacation, you can save your breath. David, who'd been silent until now, stepped forward. Look, Carter, I get that you're angry, but she's still family. We can't just leave her stranded. She's not stranded. She's with a wealthy venture capitalist who promised to take care of her. Let him handle it. I picked up a wrench and turned back to the engine. Or you can wire her money yourselves. I hear Bali's beautiful this time of year. You bastard, Patricia hissed. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? I straightened up again, and something in my voice made all 3 of them take a step back. Like what? Like treating me like hired help at family dinners? Like making jokes about Julia slumming it with a mechanic? Like never once, in 12 years, treating me like I was good enough for your precious daughter? That's not... It is exactly that. And now that your precious daughter has shown her true colors, you want me to clean up the mess, just like always. I gestured around the shop. This humble business that you love to look down on, it employs 12 people. It's paid for Julia's designer clothes, her spa treatments, her luxury vacations. It built the house she lives in and bought the car she drives. But none of that mattered to you because I work with my hands. Rebecca was crying now. David looked like he wanted to disappear. Patricia was turning an interesting shade of purple. Well, congratulations, I continued. Your daughter found herself a man who meets your standards. Rich, educated, drives a BMW. The fact that he's a lying, cheating scumbag who preys on married women probably doesn't matter to you, as long as he looks good at the country club. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? Your daughter is a cheater and a liar. You raised her to think she was too good for the man who loved her, and she believed you, so now she gets to live with the consequences. I walked to the office door and held it open. You want to help Julia? Wire her money for a plane ticket home. But don't come into my shop and try to make me the villain in this story. I'm not the one who broke our marriage vows. After they left, Sean emerged from the back room where he'd been pretending to work on inventory. Damn, he said. Remind me never to get on your bad side. They had it coming. 12 years of looking down their noses at me, and now they want my help when their golden girl screws up. My phone had been buzzing throughout the confrontation. More messages from Julia, increasingly desperate. Carter, my mother says you were horrible to her. Why are you doing this? Ethan's business is falling apart. His investors are pulling out. We need help. Please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Just get us home. The last message was different. I know you're angry. I know I made mistakes. But I love you. I've always loved you. This thing with Ethan, it was just a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. Please don't let it destroy us. I stared at the message for a long time. 12 years of marriage, 12 years of building a life together, and she was calling it a mistake. You going to answer her? Sean asked, reading over my shoulder. Yeah, I said. I am. I typed, You love me? Prove it. Come home, alone. Leave Ethan in Bali and come home to your husband. Show me that your marriage means more to you than your boyfriend. The response came back in less than a minute. I can't just abandon him here. He needs help too. And there it was. When forced to choose between her husband and her lover, Julia chose her lover. Even when he was broke, even when his life was falling apart, even when helping him meant destroying her marriage forever. I showed the message to Sean. Well, that settles it. What's phase 3? I pulled up the GPS tracker. Julia and Ethan were still in Bali, probably fighting about money and blame and whose fault it was that their perfect escape had turned into a nightmare. Phase 3 is coming home, I said. Both of them. What do you mean? I mean, I'm going to buy them plane tickets. First class. Home to Maine. I started typing on my laptop. Because I want them here for the grand finale. Carter, that's going to cost... It's going to cost exactly what it's worth to see the looks on their faces when they realize their problems are just beginning. I booked the flights, scheduling them to arrive in 3 days. Besides, I want front row seats for what happens when Ethan's wife finds out where he's been. Sean blinked. Ethan's married? Oh yeah. Married to a very wealthy, very vindictive woman who owns half his business assets. I pulled up the private investigator's report I'd commissioned. Meet Margaret Pierce, daughter of a federal judge, graduate of Harvard Law, and according to her social media, completely unaware that her husband is in Bali with his mistress. You hired a private investigator? I hired the best private investigator in Portland. Cost me $5,000, but it was worth every penny. I scrolled through the report. Turns out Ethan has a pattern. This isn't his first affair, just his most expensive one. Margaret's been building a divorce case for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. And you're going to give her that moment? I'm going to gift wrap it for her. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Mrs. Pierce? This is Carter Callahan. I have some information about your husband that I think you'll find very interesting. The conversation lasted 20 minutes. By the end of it, Margaret Pierce was very grateful for my call and very interested in meeting with me when her husband returned from his business trip. After I hung up, Sean was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Remind me never to cheat on my wife, he said. Good policy. I closed the laptop. Julia wanted to explore herself. Well, she's about to explore what it's like to be a divorced woman with no job, no money, and no friends. And Ethan's about to explore what it's like to be a divorced man with no business, no assets, and a very angry ex-wife who happens to be a lawyer. What about you? What are you going to explore? I looked around the shop. My shop, built with my own hands and paid for with my own sweat. Then I thought about the house Julia and I had shared, the life we'd built together, the future we'd planned. I'm going to explore what it's like to be free, I said. The Portland jetport was crowded for a Thursday afternoon, but I spotted Julia and Ethan immediately. They looked like refugees from a luxury resort, wrinkled designer clothes, expensive luggage, and the shell-shocked expressions of people whose perfect plan had gone spectacularly wrong. Julia saw me first. Even exhausted and stressed, she was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. For just a moment, I felt a flicker of the old feeling, the urge to protect her, to fix whatever was wrong, to be the husband she needed. Then I remembered the text messages, the lies, the choice she'd made when I asked her to come home alone. "Carter!" She rushed toward me, leaving Ethan standing with their luggage. "Oh God, I'm so glad to see you. This whole trip was a nightmare. Everything went wrong." She threw her arms around me, and I let her. She smelled like expensive perfume and desperation. "I missed you so much," she whispered against my chest. "I was so stupid. Can we just go home and forget this ever happened?" Over her shoulder, I watched Ethan approach cautiously. He looked like a man walking toward his own execution, which wasn't far from the truth. "Carter," he said, extending his hand. "I think we need to talk." I didn't take his hand. "I think we do." Julia pulled back, looking between us nervously. "Maybe we should all just—" "No," I said quietly. "No more maybes, no more lies, no more pretending." I looked at Ethan. "You wanted to talk? Let's talk. All of us. Right here, right now." The airport wasn't the ideal place for a confrontation, but I'd chosen it deliberately. Public spaces made people behave better, and I wanted witnesses for what came next. "Julia told me about the misunderstanding with the bank accounts," Ethan said, trying to sound reasonable. "I'm sure we can work something out." "Misunderstanding?" I laughed, and several people turned to look. "Is that what we're calling it?" "Carter, please," Julia whispered. "People are staring. Let them stare. Let them hear the truth for once." I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. "You want to talk about misunderstandings, Ethan? Let's talk about these." I showed him the screenshots of his messages to Julia. His face went white. "Where did you get those?" "From my wife's laptop. The laptop I paid for. In the house I paid for. The house she shared with me while she was planning her romantic getaway with you." Julia grabbed my arm. "Carter, stop. Not here." "Why not here? You weren't worried about discretion when you were planning this trip. You weren't worried about our marriage when you were buying couples massages with my money." I shook off her hand. "But now you're embarrassed?" A small crowd was gathering. Airport drama was apparently better than whatever was on the departure monitors. Ethan tried to salvage the situation. "Look, I understand you're upset. But Julia and I, we have feelings for each other. Real feelings. This isn't some casual affair." "Real feelings," I repeated. "Is that what you call it when you seduce married women? Real feelings?" "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that. You're a predator, Ethan. You target unhappy wives, promise them a better life, then disappear when things get complicated." I stepped closer to him. "How many others have there been? How many marriages have you destroyed?" He didn't answer, but his silence was answer enough. "Carter," Julia said desperately, "can we please just go home and discuss this privately?" "Home?" I turned to her. "You mean the home you were so eager to leave? The home you called a prison? The home you couldn't wait to escape from?" "I never said—" "You said all of it. In your messages to him. In your conversations with Monica. In every lie you told me for the past 3 months." I felt the anger building, hot and clean. "You want to go home, Julia?" "Which home? The one with your husband, or the one you were planning to make with your boyfriend?" She started crying. Real tears, not the manipulative kind she'd use during arguments about money or my working hours. These were tears of genuine despair. "I choose you," she whispered. "I choose our home, our marriage. I made a terrible mistake, but I choose you." "You had your chance to choose me. I gave you a choice in Bali, come home alone or don't come home at all. You chose him." I gestured at Ethan, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable with the public attention. "Even when he was broke, even when his life was falling apart, you chose him over your husband." "That's not fair. He needed help." "And I didn't? Your husband of 12 years didn't need loyalty, didn't need honesty, didn't need the woman he loved to choose him over her boyfriend?" The crowd was getting larger. Someone was definitely recording this on their phone. By tonight, it would be all over social media. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know the details of Julia's affair and Ethan's predatory behavior. Perfect. "You want to know what's going to happen now?" I continued, my voice carrying across the terminal. "You're both going to discover what consequences look like. Real consequences." I pulled out a manila envelope and handed it to Ethan. "Those are copies of all your messages to my wife. Your business partners have already seen them. Your investors have already pulled out. Your clients have already fired you." Ethan's hands were shaking as he opened the envelope. "You can't do this. This is harassment. This is justice. You destroyed my marriage for sport. Now I'm returning the favor." I handed a second envelope to Julia. "Your boss has seen the messages too. The ones where you bragged about sleeping with his business partner, the ones where you laughed about lying to your husband, the ones where you called your coworkers pathetic small-town losers. Julia's face crumpled. My job? Gone. As of yesterday. I felt a savage satisfaction at her expression. Turns out employers don't like workers who lie, cheat, and mock their colleagues. You're destroying our lives, Ethan said. You destroyed your own lives. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. I pulled out my phone and showed them the recording app. This whole conversation is being recorded, by the way, for legal purposes. Legal purposes? Julia's voice was barely a whisper. Divorce proceedings. I filed papers yesterday. You'll be served as soon as you step foot in town. I put the phone away. Oh, and Ethan? Your wife wants to see you. She's waiting at the house with her lawyer and a process server. Apparently, she's been building a case against you for months, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Ethan went completely pale. Margaret knows? Margaret knows everything. About Julia, about your other affairs, about the money you've been hiding in offshore accounts. She's very thorough, your wife, and very, very angry. Julia was sobbing now, drawing stares and whispers from the crowd. Carter, please. There has to be a way to fix this. I love you. I've always loved you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have cheated. If you loved me, you would have come home alone when I asked. If you loved me, you would have chosen our marriage over your boyfriend. I picked up my keys. But you didn't. So now you get to live with your choices. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Julia, I changed the locks. Your stuff is in storage. The address is in the divorce papers. Where am I supposed to go? She called after me. I don't know. Ask your boyfriend, ask your mother, ask Monica. I kept walking. Ask someone who cares. Behind me, I could hear her crying and Ethan trying to calm her down. I could hear the murmur of the crowd, the click of phone cameras, the whispered conversations that would spread the story across town by nightfall. I walked out of the airport and into the parking lot where Sean was waiting by my truck. How'd it go? He asked. Better than expected. Julia's homeless, jobless, and about to be divorced. Ethan's broke, exposed, and about to be destroyed by his wife's lawyers. I climbed into the passenger seat. I'd say that's a good day's work. What happens now? I thought about the house that would soon be mine alone, the business I'd built with my own hands, the future I could create without lies, without betrayal, without a woman who saw me as a safety net rather than a partner. Now I start over, I said. Clean slate, fresh start. You going to be okay? I watched through the windshield as Julia and Ethan emerged from the terminal, dragging their luggage and their shattered dreams behind them. They looked lost, desperate, defeated. Yeah, I said. I'm going to be just fine. 3 months later, I was installing new security cameras at the shop when she walked in. Not Julia. I hadn't seen or heard from Julia since the airport confrontation. This was someone entirely different. Excuse me, she said, her voice warm and slightly amused. Are you Carter Callahan? I looked up from the camera mounting and nearly dropped my drill. She was maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt that somehow managed to look both casual and elegant. Pretty, but not in Julia's high-maintenance way. This was natural beauty, the kind that didn't need designer clothes or professional makeup to shine. That's me, I said, climbing down from the ladder. What can I do for you? I'm Sarah Mitchell. I just bought the house on Elm Street, the Blue Victorian. Mrs. Duval said you might be able to help me with some electrical work. Sarah Mitchell. I'd heard about her from Mrs. Duval, who'd been keeping me updated on neighborhood news with the dedication of a professional intelligence officer. Sarah was a nurse at Maine Medical, recently divorced, moved to town for a fresh start. No kids, no drama, no complicated history. The Hendricks place, I said, wiping my hands on a rag. Great house. What kind of electrical problems are we talking about? The kitchen outlets don't work, and there's a weird buzzing sound coming from the basement. Plus, I'd like to add some outdoor lighting for security. She smiled, and something in my chest did a little flip. Mrs. Duval said you were honest, reliable, and reasonably priced. High praise from her. Mrs. Duval's been my guardian angel lately. When do you need the work done? No rush. I'm still unpacking. She looked around the shop, taking in the organized chaos of tools, parts, and half-finished projects. This is impressive. You built all this yourself? Started with a 2-bay garage and a dream. Took 15 years to get it to this size. I felt a familiar pride looking around the shop. It's not fancy, but it's mine. It's perfect, she said, and I could tell she meant it. There's something to be said for building something with your own hands. We talked for another 10 minutes about the electrical work, but the conversation kept drifting to other topics. Her nursing job, my business, the challenges of starting over in a new place. She was easy to talk to, genuinely interested in what I had to say, and completely without the artificial sweetness that had always felt calculated when it came from Julia. After she left, I found myself smiling for no particular reason. Sean noticed immediately. "Who was that?" he asked, emerging from under the hood of a Ford pickup. "Sarah Mitchell, new neighbor, needs some electrical work done." "Uh-huh. And that smile on your face?" "What smile?" "The smile that says you just met someone interesting." Sean grinned. "About time, man. You've been working too much lately." He wasn't wrong. Since the divorce was finalized, I'd thrown myself into the business with single-minded intensity, partly to keep busy, partly to rebuild the financial cushion that Julia's betrayal had depleted, but mostly to avoid thinking about the wreckage of my marriage and what came next. "It's just electrical work," I said, but even I didn't believe it. That evening, I drove over to Elm Street to take a look at Sarah's house. The blue Victorian was a classic Maine home. 3 stories, wraparound porch, probably built in the 1890s. It needed work, but it had good bones. Like its new owner, it was beautiful in a way that didn't try too hard. Sarah answered the door in paint-splattered clothes, her hair escaping from its ponytail and curly wisps. She looked tired, but happy, the way people look when they're building something new from the ashes of something old. "Perfect timing," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "I just finished painting the living room. Want to see?" The house was a work in progress. Boxes everywhere, furniture covered in drop cloths, walls in various stages of repair and repainting. But I could see her vision taking shape. Warm colors, comfortable furniture, the kind of home that welcomed people instead of intimidating them. "It's going to be beautiful," I said, and meant it. "That's the plan. I wanted something completely different from—" She trailed off, then shook her head. "Sorry. Fresh start, remember? No looking backward." "I understand. Fresh starts are harder than people think." She looked at me curiously. "Mrs. Duval mentioned you were recently divorced. I'm sorry." "Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me, even if I didn't know it at the time." I followed her toward the kitchen. Sometimes you have to lose everything to figure out what actually matters. The wiring in Sarah's old Maine house was a mess, but fixable. While I rewired her kitchen and upgraded the panel, we sat at her oak table, drinking coffee and talking about how she'd escaped a suffocating, perfect life in California after catching her husband cheating. When she asked about my divorce, I told her Julia ended it when she chose another man. I only made it official. Over 2 weeks of work, Sarah treated my blue-collar job with respect Julia never had, calling me an artist and admiring the care I put into every wire. That simple respect made something in me shift. When she invited me to stay for dinner, one meal became a movie, then long, honest conversations, then a careful first kiss that felt like coming home. 6 months later, we were together, and the town's gossip had moved on. Julia back with her parents, Ethan ruined, Monica shunned. One night, Julia came to the shop to apologize, hoping there might be a second chance. I told her no. Our marriage had ended with her choices, not Sarah's presence. I wished her well, but I was done trying to save her. That evening, I drove to Sarah's blue Victorian, where the lights I'd installed glowed warmly and the woman on the porch wore my old work shirt and the kind of smile that said, "You're enough." In her arms, under the security lights and stars, I understood something simple and final. The best revenge wasn't destroying the people who broke me, it was building a better life with someone who never would.